The bridge of the Galactic Council ship Harmony's voice hummed with tension as Admiral reviewed the latest intelligence reports. His four eyes scanned the holographic displays while his tentacles unconsciously coiled around his command chair. The data was impossible to believe, yet it came from their most reliable sources. "Show me the footage again," he commanded, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. The main screen flickered to life, displaying what appeared to be a small blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. Nothing remarkable about it at first glance, except for one terrifying detail. It was classified as a Class XII, the highest rating on the Galactic Habitability Index. Worlds where the very air could kill most species, where the surface pressure would crush an exoskeleton, where radiation levels made long-term habitation impossible. Yet somehow impossibly, this world teemed with intelligent life. The humans, as they call themselves, have not only survived on this nightmare planet, reported Science Officer Ash, her mandibles clicking nervously, but they have thrived. Their population numbers in the billions, Admiral. His primary eyes focused on the tactical display, while his secondary eyes monitored his crew's stress levels. The Council had been observing this species for 30 rotations now, ever since their first crude radio transmissions had been detected. What they had discovered every principle of xenobiology known to galactic science. The humans breathed a corrosive gas mixture that would burn the lungs of most species. They consumed plant and animal matter that contained toxins deadly to civilized life forms. Their world was bombarded by radiation from their unstable star, yet they had developed no natural shielding. Most shocking of all, they seemed to actively seek out danger for recreation. "Sir," Communications Officer K called out, his crystalline form resonating with urgency, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the council chambers." The image of High Counselor Aura materialized before them, her graceful form flickering slightly through the subspace connection. The leader of the Galactic Council appeared calm, but had served under her long enough to detect the subtle signs of stress in her bioluminescent patterns. "Admiral, I trust you have reviewed the human files," she began without preamble. "The Council has reached a decision. These represent an unacceptable threat to galactic peace and stability." His tentacles tightened around his chair. He had feared this moment would come. "High Counselor, with respect, they have shown no aggressive intentions toward any galactic species. Their technology is primitive compared to ours." "Primitive?" Aura's patterns flashed with what recognized as bitter amusement. "Admiral, these creatures have turned there into a fortress. They have weaponized everything from splitting atoms to harnessing the power of their own genetics. In just 200 of their years, they have progressed from primitive chemical propulsion to splitting atoms for energy. That rate of advancement is unprecedented." The holographic display shifted to show various human technologies. Nuclear weapons that could crack continents. Biological agents that could wipe out entire ecosystems. Chemical compounds that made their atmosphere seem welcoming by comparison. "But what truly concerns the Council," Aura continued, "is their recent breakthrough in faster-than-light communication. I predict they will achieve interstellar travel within 50 rotations. We cannot allow a species this dangerous to spread beyond their world." Felt his gill slits flutter with anxiety. "You're ordering their elimination." "The Council has voted. The human threat must be neutralized before they can export their violence to the rest of the galaxy. You are to deploy the pacification fleet and initiate Protocol 7. The connection terminated, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Protocol 7 was the euphemistic term for complete planetary sterilization. It had been used only twice in galactic history, both times against species that had threatened to upset the careful balance of civilized society. "Sir," Navigation Officer spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper, "the pacification fleet is already assembled. 47 ships, including 3 planet crackers." Stared at the blue world on his screen. Somewhere down there, billions of beings were going about their daily lives, unaware that the galaxy had just condemned them to death. They had committed no crime except being born on a world that had forged them into something the Galactic Council feared. "Plot a course for the human system," he ordered reluctantly. "Standard approach vector will arrive in 6 rotations." As the Harmony's voice began its journey toward Earth, its crew worked in subdued silence. None of them relished what was to come, but orders were orders. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for over 3,000 years through careful management of emerging species. Some were welcomed into the galactic community, others were guided toward more peaceful paths, and a very few were judged too dangerous to be allowed to survive. The humans, it seemed, fell into that final category. What the Council failed to understand, what their careful sociological models and studies had missed, was that creatures forged in the crucible of a were not just survivors, they were fighters. And when cornered, humans had a tendency to do the impossible. On Earth, the massive radio telescope arrays that had been monitoring deep space for decades suddenly detected something new. Massive energy signatures moving toward their solar system at incredible speed. The signals were artificial, clearly technological, and they were coming from the direction of a star cluster that had recently begun showing signs of advanced civilization. Dr. Sarah stared at the readings with growing excitement and dread. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization was about to begin, but the approaching ships were not broadcasting any greeting signals. Instead, their energy signatures matched theoretical weapons configurations that Earth's military scientists had only dreamed of. In underground bunkers around the world, emergency protocols activated for the first time since the Cold War. Defense satellites turned their sensors skyward. Military commanders dusted off contingency plans that had been theoretical exercises only days before. Humanity was about to face its first test on the galactic stage, and they had no idea just how badly they were outnumbered. The Galactic Council commanded the resources of thousands of worlds and millions of species. Earth was alone, primitive by galactic standards, and about to face annihilation. But the Council had made one critical error in their calculations. They had studied human history, seen the wars and conflicts that their past, and concluded that humans were simply another violent species to be eliminated. They had failed to understand that those very conflicts had taught humanity something invaluable: how to unite in the face of an existential threat. As news of the approaching alien fleet spread through secret government channels, something remarkable began to happen. Ancient enemies set aside their differences. Military alliances formed overnight. Scientists shared their most classified research without hesitation. For the first time in human history, the species faced a common enemy that threatened not just one nation or one ideology, but the very existence of their kind. That had forged them into survivors was about to become their greatest asset. The approaching galactic fleet expected to find a primitive, divided world ripe for conquest. Instead, they were about to encounter something far more dangerous: a united humanity with nothing left to lose. Admiral watched his screens as they approached the outer edge of the human solar system. Long-range sensors detected no defensive installations, no orbital platforms, no signs of advanced military technology. The humans appeared to be as primitive as the reports suggested. He allowed himself a moment of relief. Perhaps this would be a quick, clean operation after all. The humans would surrender when faced with the overwhelming superiority of galactic technology, and the necessity of their destruction would be clear to all. He had no way of knowing that at that very moment, in hidden facilities across Earth, humanity was preparing to show the galaxy exactly why their world was classified as unsurvivable. They were about to respond, and the galaxy would learn the true meaning of force. The first salvo came without warning. Admiral had expected some form of communication, perhaps a demand for surrender, maybe even a desperate plea for mercy. Instead, his sensors screamed warnings as primitive chemical rockets streaked toward his fleet from the blue world below. "Impossible," Science Officer Ash chittered, her compound eyes reflecting the tactical display. "Their trajectory calculations are perfect. How did they detect our approach vector?" His tentacles coiled around his command chair as he watched the incoming missiles. They were crude by galactic standards, propelled by controlled explosions rather than proper drives, but their targeting was unnervingly precise. "Deploy point defense systems. These weapons cannot possibly penetrate our shields." The first wave of human missiles struck the outer ships of the pacification fleet. As predicted, they detonated harmlessly against energy barriers that could withstand the impact of small asteroids. But as the explosions faded, something unexpected appeared on the sensors. Admiral Communications Officer K's crystalline form pulsed with confusion. "The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're talking to us." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Admiral found himself looking at a human face for the first time. The creature was smaller than he had expected, with pale skin and dark hair, but its eyes held an intelligence that made his gill slits flutter with unease. "This is General of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said, its words translated into clicking galactic common. "You have entered our solar system with hostile intent. We demand an explanation." Hesitated, protocol called for immediate engagement, but something about this creature's demeanor gave him pause. There was no fear in its expression, no panic at the overwhelming force arrayed against its world. Instead, he saw something that reminded him uncomfortably of his own species' warrior poets from the ancient times before galactic civilization had tamed them. "I am Admiral of the Galactic Council Fleet," he replied, his translator rendering his response into the strange sounds humans called speech. "By order of the High Council, your species has been deemed incompatible with galactic peace. You will prepare for pacification." The human's expression did not change. "Pacification? That's a pleasant euphemism for genocide, Admiral. We've seen your kind of peace before in our own history, always imposed by those who believe they know what's best for everyone else." On the tactical display, watched more missiles launch from Earth. These were different from the first wave, larger and moving faster. His tactical officer reported that several were carrying unusual energy signatures. "You misunderstand the situation," tried to explain, though he was not sure why he felt compelled to justify their actions to a creature that would be dead within the hour. "The Galactic Council maintains order among thousands of worlds. Your species' violent nature threatens that stability." General's lips curved into what xenobiology files identified as a smile, though the expression seemed predatory rather than friendly. "Violent? Admiral, you just brought 47 warships to exterminate an entire species, and you're calling us violent." Before could respond, the second wave of missiles reached his fleet. These did not attempt to breach their shields. Instead, they detonated at precisely calculated distances, releasing clouds of metallic particles that began interfering with sensor systems. Simultaneously, powerful electromagnetic pulses disrupted communication arrays across multiple ships. "Clever," admitted grudgingly, "but ultimately futile. Our technology is ahead of yours." "Technology?" laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both musical and terrifying. "Admiral, do you know what makes a good weapon?" Without waiting for an answer, she continued. "It's not how advanced it is. It's how well you understand your enemy and how creative you can be with what you have. We've had thousands of years to perfect the art of killing each other. We know exactly how to turn anything into a weapon." As if to prove her point, the tactical display suddenly showed dozens of new contacts emerging from behind Earth's moon. But these were not more missiles. They were asteroids, small rocks that had been captured and fitted with crude propulsion systems. Nothing that should concern a modern fleet. Then realized what the humans had done. They had not been trying to destroy his ships with their missiles. They had been mapping his fleet's defensive capabilities, learning how their shields and point defense systems operated. The electromagnetic pulses had not been weapons at all, but sophisticated scanning arrays disguised as attacks. "Fascinating," Science Officer Ash reported with growing alarm. "They've calculated the exact frequency modulation needed to disrupt our shield harmonics. These asteroids are carrying resonance charges." The makeshift weapons struck home with devastating precision. One after another, ships of the pacification fleet found their shields failing as the humans exploited weaknesses no one had thought to defend against. The asteroids themselves did minimal damage, but they created gaps that allowed follow-up attacks to reach their hulls. "How," demanded, "how could primitives develop such tactics?" His image smiled wider. "Because we've been fighting wars since before your ancestors crawled out of their spawning pools, Admiral. Every conflict teaches us something new. Every enemy shows us a different way to die and a different way to kill." The third wave of human attacks came from an unexpected direction: Earth's own star. Somehow, the humans had managed to position solar collectors in close orbit around their sun, devices that sensors had dismissed as primitive energy-gathering installations. Now those same collectors turned toward his fleet and began focusing concentrated solar radiation into coherent beams. The improvised weapons lacked the power to seriously damage galactic warships, but they had another purpose entirely. The intense radiation interfered with the fleet's communication systems, isolating ships from one another and preventing coordinated responses. In the chaos, more human weapons found their marks. Your species shows admirable resourcefulness, conceded as damage reports flooded in from across his fleet. But you cannot win this battle. We still outnumber and outgun you by orders of magnitude. Win, expression grew thoughtful. Admiral, you still don't understand. This isn't about winning or losing. This is about making sure the galaxy remembers what happens when you threaten. The fourth wave of attacks came from everywhere at once. The space around Earth erupted with activity as hidden weapons platforms revealed themselves. Satellites that had appeared to be simple communication relays suddenly sprouted missile pods. Orbital research stations began launching projectiles that moved at significant fractions of light speed. Even the space debris that's fleet had dismissed as harmless junk turned out to be camouflaged weapon systems. But most shocking of all were the human vessels that emerged from behind the various moons and planets of their solar system. They were clearly jury-rigged affairs, civilian ships hastily converted for combat, but they moved with a coordination that spoke of extensive planning. Impossible, breathed. When did they have time to prepare all this? His voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. We've been preparing for this day since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Every science fiction story, every military exercise, every thought experiment about alien invasion has been building toward this moment. The human commander gestured, and the main screen split to show multiple views of her species. Cities were not in chaos as had expected. Instead, he saw ordered evacuation procedures, military formations moving with precision, and massive industrial complexes that seemed to be producing weapons in real time. You see, Admiral, the thing about is that we don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to fight, and we've had a very long time to get good at it. A new alarm sounded on the bridge of the Harmony's voice. Navigation officer turned to his commander with obvious distress. Sir, we're detecting massive energy buildups on the planet's surface. They appear to be... Oh, ancestors preserve us. They're nuclear weapons, hundreds of them. Nodded as if she had heard the report. Fusion warheads, actually. We found nuclear fission terribly inefficient. These new designs pack quite a bit more punch. Felt his species' equivalent of cold sweat beating on his carapace. You would destroy your own world rather than submit. Destroy it, looked genuinely puzzled. Admiral, those weapons aren't aimed at our planet, they're aimed at you. The tactical display lit up with new contacts as launch platforms across Earth began firing. These were not the crude chemical rockets of the first attacks. These were fusion-powered missiles capable of achieving significant fractions of light speed, and there were thousands of them. You're insane, whispered. The radiation from those weapons will poison your atmosphere for generations. Smile turned cold. Admiral, our atmosphere has been slowly poisoning us since we invented industry. A little more radiation isn't going to make much difference. Besides, she added cheerfully, we've had lots of practice cleaning up after nuclear weapons. As the human fusion missiles streaked toward his fleet, realized that everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about warfare had just become obsolete. These creatures did not fight like civilized beings. They fought like the universe itself was trying to kill them, which, he supposed, it had been for their entire evolutionary history. They were not just responding to the galactic threat. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson in applied violence that would be remembered for, and was beginning to suspect that his fleet was about to become the first chapter in that lesson. The fusion missiles struck with the force of miniature suns. Even its advanced shields, designed to withstand the weapons of civilized warfare, buckled under the assault. 3 ships of the pacification fleet simply vanished in balls of superheated plasma, while a dozen others found their hulls breached by weapons that should have been impossible for such a primitive species to create. Admiral, Science Officer Ash reported with barely concealed panic. The humans are using their own star's gravitational field to accelerate their missiles. The projectiles are achieving velocities that our defense systems cannot track. Stared at the tactical display in growing horror. Red icons marked the destruction of his fleet, while green dots showed more human weapons launching from every conceivable hiding place in their solar system. The creatures had not just prepared for this battle. They had turned their entire system into a weapon. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked quietly. 16 destroyed, 11 crippled, came the grim response. The humans are targeting our engines specifically. They want us stranded here. On the main screen, General's image remained perfectly composed despite the chaos around her. Behind her, could see human military personnel coordinating the defense with an efficiency that spoke of extensive planning. "You seem surprised, Admiral," observed. "Did you expect us to roll over and accept extinction quietly?" "I expected rational beings who would recognize the futility of resistance," replied, though even as he spoke, he realized how naive that sounded. "The Galactic Council represents thousands of advanced civilizations. You cannot hope to defeat us all." His expression grew thoughtful. "You know, Admiral, you keep talking about civilization and rationality as if they're the same thing, but from where I'm sitting, there's nothing civilized about attempted genocide." A new wave of human attacks began, but these were different from the previous assaults. Instead of trying to destroy his remaining ships, the humans were deploying what appeared to be massive nets made of some metallic substance. The nets spread out across space, creating barriers that prevented the galactic fleet from maneuvering effectively. "What are they doing now?" demanded. "The nets appear to be made of a carbon nanotube weave," Ash reported after scanning them. "Incredibly strong for their mass, but I don't understand the tactical purpose." The answer came moments later as massive shapes began emerging from behind Earth's moon. They were clearly human vessels, but unlike anything in its databases. These ships looked more like mobile construction platforms than warships, bristling with industrial equipment rather than weapons. "Admiral," said, her voice carrying a note of grim satisfaction, "I'd like you to meet the real Earth Defense Force. What you've been fighting so far was just the warm-up act." The construction ships spread out across the battlefield, their crews working with mechanical precision to assemble something enormous. Watched in fascination and growing dread as the humans began building what appeared to be a massive siege engine in open space. "They're constructing a mass driver," navigation officer whispered, "using asteroids as ammunition." "Impossible," protested. "Such a device would require infrastructure on a planetary scale." Smiled, "Admiral, when you live on you learn to build things that can survive anything the universe throws at you. Our industrial capacity isn't distributed across comfortable garden worlds. It's concentrated on one planet that tried to kill us every day for millions of years." As if to prove her point, the construction proceeded at an impossible pace. The human crews worked without protective suits in the vacuum of space, their equipment apparently designed to function in the harshest conditions imaginable. Within hours, they had assembled a weapon system that should have taken months to build. "You see," continued conversationally while her species built instruments of war around his trapped fleet, "the thing about is that we don't just survive adversity. We learn from it. Every natural disaster, every disease, every extinction event that didn't quite finish us off taught us something valuable." The mass driver came online with a deep harmonic resonance that felt through his ship's hull. The weapon system began hurling asteroids at relativistic speeds, turning chunks of space rock into kinetic kill vehicles that could crack planets. "But you're not targeting our ships," observed with growing unease. "No," agreed. "We're demonstrating something. Admiral, how long would it take your people to build a weapon like that?" Did some quick calculations. With proper planning and adequate resources, perhaps 6 months for the initial framework. "We built it in 4 hours," said simply. "Using nothing but industrial equipment we happen to have lying around. Now imagine what we could build if we had 6 months to prepare." The implications hit like a physical blow. The humans were not just defending themselves. They were showing the galaxy exactly what kind of enemy they would make if forced to take their war beyond there. "You cannot seriously believe you could threaten the entire Galactic Council," he said, though his words sounded hollow even to his own hearing. His image split, showing multiple screens of human activity across their solar system. Massive shipyards were under construction around Jupiter, their gas giant apparently being strip-mined for raw materials. Industrial platforms orbited every significant body in the system, turning the entire solar system into a fortress factory. "Admiral, do you know what we call this?" Gestured at the displays. "Tuesday. This is what humans do every day. We take hostile environments and make them work for us. We turn scarcity into abundance and weakness into strength." Another human fleet emerged from the asteroid belt, this one composed of vessels that looked more like traditional warships. But even these followed the human design philosophy of brutal efficiency over elegant aesthetics. They were ugly, angular things that looked like they had been built to survive anything. "You have perhaps 30 ships left," continued. "We've built twice that number in the time since you arrived, and Admiral, this is just one star system. Imagine what happens when we start building fleets specifically designed to hunt down civilized species who think should be exterminated." Felt his command chair's support systems adjusting as his stress levels spiked. The human was not making idle threats. These creatures had demonstrated the ability to turn their entire civilization into a weapons system in a matter of hours. Given time and motivation, they could become a threat to the galaxy itself. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. His expression softened slightly. "Right now, we want you to go home, Admiral, take your surviving ships back to your precious Galactic Council and deliver a message for us." "Which is?" "Tell them that Earth is no longer interested in their protection. We'll make our own way in the galaxy, thank you very much. And if anyone else shows up with plans to pacify us, we'll teach them the same lesson we've taught you." Communication Officer K interrupted with a crystalline chime of distress. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from the council chambers." The image of High Counselor Aura materialized alongside, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with barely controlled panic. "Admiral, what is your status? We've lost contact with over a third of your fleet." "High Counselor," began carefully, "the situation has developed in unexpected ways." Turned to address the council leader directly. "High Counselor Aura, I presume? I'm General, representing the people of Earth. Your Admiral here has been learning about hospitality." Aura's patterns shifted to express contempt. "You cannot seriously believe that your primitive weapons pose a threat to galactic civilization." Smile returned, and this time recognized it as the expression of a predator that had cornered its prey. "High Counselor, would you like to see what else we've been working on?" The main display shifted to show the outer edge of the human solar system, where something enormous was taking shape. It appeared to be a ring structure, vast enough to encircle a small moon, and it was clearly under active construction. "We call it explained cheerfully. "Reverse engineered from your own ship's drive systems. Amazing what you can learn when you put your mind to it." Felt his gill slits close in shock. The humans had managed to decode galactic faster-than-light technology in a matter of days. What should have taken centuries of careful study, they had achieved through the simple expedient of capturing and dissecting his destroyed vessels. "That's impossible," Ara whispered. "High Counselor, you keep using that word," replied. "I don't think it means what you think it means. You see, when you're born on a world where the weather can kill you, where the animals are all either poisonous or have more teeth than is strictly necessary, and where even the plants are trying to murder you, you develop a very practical approach to problem solving." They began to glow with the distinctive energy signature of an active faster-than-light drive. But this was not the carefully modulated field of galactic technology. This was something crude and powerful, built with the same philosophy that had created their fusion weapons and improvised fleet. "You wouldn't dare use that," Aura said, though her patterns betrayed her uncertainty. His expression grew serious. "High Counselor, I want you to understand something very clearly. Earth is no longer asking for your permission to exist. We're not seeking membership in your galactic community. We're not interested in your peace or your civilization or your careful balance of power." The human commander stood, and for the first time, could see the full scope of the command center behind her. Thousands of humans worked at stations that monitored not just their solar system, but star charts that showed routes to every major galactic world. "We're going to take our place in this galaxy whether you like it or not," continued. "And if anyone tries to stop us, we'll show them exactly why you don't pick fights with." The reached full activation, its energy signature visible across multiple star systems. It was a declaration of intent that could be seen by every advanced civilization in the local galactic arm. "Admiral," said, turning back to the shaken fleet commander, "your ships are free to leave. Take your survivors home. Tell them what you've seen here today." Found his voice with difficulty. "And if we refuse?" Smile returned, but now it held no warmth at all. "Then you'll discover what happens when stop playing defense and start playing offense. Admiral, the choice is yours." Looking at his tactical display, at the human weapons trained on his remaining ships, at the industrial might of an entire civilization that had just demonstrated its ability to turn anything into an instrument of war, made the only rational decision possible. Fleet Command, this is Admiral. All ships prepare for immediate withdrawal. We're going home. As the battered remnants of the pacification fleet limped away from the human solar system, could not shake the feeling that the galaxy would never be the same again. They had responded to the threat of extinction with a demonstration of force that would be remembered for. And somewhere behind them, in that blue-green world that had forged the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered, the humans were already building their next surprise.